Hello, and in today's video we are doing a reaction to my pre-season predictions for the 2021 to 22 season. That's right, in this video we're going to be reacting to both the Premier League and the Championship predictions that I did all the way back in August 2021. The Premier League and Championship season for 2021 to 22 is done, and the fixtures are even out for both divisions. The Championship, Watford have Sheffield United at home to begin with, and in the Premier League we've got Liverpool, they're going to be away to Fulham, Man City travelling to London Stadium, West Ham, and also we've got Chelsea. Well, they will be up against a very interesting opponent in match week 1. That is, of course, oh yes, you know it. I've completely forgot it. I don't know it. I don't know how I managed that, just on the spot. I remembered all of them other than Chelsea. Apologies for that, people. No, what I meant was their first game, obviously, on the opening weekend is against cue the awkward music. Everton, that's the one. Frank Lampard, former side, Chelsea. He'll be managing Everton for that one. So, let us get into, first of all, the table. That's the main thing that all YouTubers start with. So, make sure, before we continue, smash a like on this video. It's a massive one. It's one of those yearly videos that always gets interesting, and you'll be very shocked by some of these predictions, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, we'll kick things off by reacting to the Premier League first, then we'll do the Championship. But we'll kick it off with the table for the Premier League. So, smash a like on it, share with your friends. If they like football, or the Premier League, or the Championship, then share it with them, and comment down below, how did you get on in your pre-season predictions from last season? So, let's kick off with 20th spot in the Premier League. What was I saying back in August? Here we go. 20th place, as you can see right there, my people. We're going for a team with 7 wins. That's right, 7. We're also going for a team with 1 draw, a single draw, and as you saw there, 30 defeats. It is going to be a stinker of a season for this team. They're going to get 57 goals in the back of the net. They're going to concede a whopping 71. What an absolute stinker. And that means they have a minus 14 goal difference. And that team, my friends, is, just as you can see there, BRE, which is Brentford. Now, so, Brentford is what I went for. That was a bit of a stinker, I'm not going to lie. But as we all know, the team in 20th, in reality, was Norwich City. That's right, the Canaries absolutely stunk out the division. I hate to say it to you, Norwich City, but you saw this coming. They just cannot seem to get that balance of the ability that they have to then fight and match in the Premier League compared to the Championship. They boss the Championship like, you know, there's no tomorrow. It is too easy for them. But they just can't find that balance, and it just yo-yoing between divisions. We've seen it in the previous season. Norwich were in the Premier League. They got relegated with quite a few weeks to spare, and they got relegated with quite a few weeks to spare this season as well, after that 2-0 defeat to the former Norwich City player, obviously Buendia, and also the former Aston Villa coach getting relegated with Norwich, Dean Smith. So that was a bitter blow for Dean Smith and the Canaries, but they were just not good enough across the season. Timu Pukki, though, I tell you what, he had a very strong season, and you know, fair play for him, because he's now signed another deal staying on at Norwich. I'm surprised by that, but he clearly is committed. He wants this club to try and find a way eventually to consolidate themselves in the Premier League, but it's just not happening at the moment. And they were really, really poor, like really, really poor. There was one part in the season when Watford were so poor that I thought it was inevitable we'd finish bottom, but Norwich just found ways to get even worse and actually push the boundaries of a bad season. So yeah, terrible, terrible season for Norwich City. They ended up very, very poor in terms of the table, but where did I put them in the table? That's what we're going to find out. It was 18th spot that I had for Norwich, so we'll take that. We got them to get relegated, but not quite the same position. That's a difference there of -2 from where I thought they would be. So, yeah, don't mind it too much. First one, only 2 places out. That's a decent start to the predictions. So shall we move on then? I think we shall. To 19th spot. it'll get there in the end.
My reason for that is I just don't think Brentford's style of play is going to work. All right, you saw with Leeds how they kind of took it forward and they were bold, they were exciting, but I just worry that there's a whole group of squad there that are not proven in the Premier League. They just aren't up to the pace of it.
Brentford aren't up to the pace of the Premier League. I literally couldn't have been much more wrong. I mean, a lot of people said Brentford to be in the bottom of 3, and that's fair enough because they were a new side, but I think we just didn't know what to expect. They hadn't been in the Premier League since 1947, so it's kind of like, what were we supposed to do? But I think we just assumed that what they did, Leeds United, a few seasons back, that was just a one-off, because we know Leeds, they were so expressive and, daring in their style. They were attacking with intent and attacking with braveness, and that could have come at the cost of their defence. And it did at times for Leeds in that first season, but then we kind of thought, oh, that might be risky. And then we thought, well, surely Brentford can't do that as well. And to be fair, they have actually done it. They've just been just as good as Leeds. I know Leeds finished a really healthy, like 9th place or something in that first season. Brentford not as as high as that. But to be fair, a lot of points in the season, they were the best of the top 10 sort of thing. Like, they were going up against these Liverpools, these Arsenals, and doing really well and winning games. So you just got to give it to Brentford. You've got to just applaud their identity, their management style under Thomas Frank, and also their recruitment system with their focus on stats. And I just love how much of an atmosphere they have as well at that Brentford Community Stadium. We saw the first game of the season against Arsenal. What a vibe! And Brentford are a welcome addition to the Premier League. And they really had a little sticky patch in the season, but then they kind of weathered it, really, when they got David Raya back from injury and Ivan Toney started scoring some goals towards the end of the season. So, yeah, really good. Breath of fresh air, Brentford, last season. But Norwich, they can be the exact opposite, and they stunk out the Premier League, I'm afraid, for them. But they will look to next season in the Championship and hope for another title push, which, could very well be another possibility. But we move on to the next spot, and that is 19th position. We went with, obviously, not Watford. We were a bit more optimistic than that, but that is how it finished. It was Watford, and to be honest, how we finished 19th and not 20th, I don't know, because our performances were disgraceful. Absolutely awful. Just a non-starter for pretty much the whole season. The Villa game was so good, and then after that, we just didn't look like we wanted to really fight for the badge. I mean, we had some performances, I think of like Tottenham away, I think of Southampton away, Villa away, Liverpool away, where we played quite well and we held on for a long time. But the point is, we were just lacking quality, and then so many games we put in performances that were just devoid of anything, like so poor, so disjointed, not working together as a team, and ultimately a group of individuals. And Emmanuel Dennis started the season so well. He had his flashes, but really started to kind of tail off. So that was a successful transfer. Did a bit of an Odion Igalo in terms of, starting the season on amazing flaming form. But ultimately, though, it was just, there wasn't that team spirit. There wasn't that togetherness. And we were just so poor at passing, at going behind early. And then also when we're leading, we just failed to hold on to that lead. So yeah, deservedly relegated to the Championship. And now, under Rob Edwards, hopefully we're going to go in the right direction, change the philosophy around managers, because it was just a repeat of the 1920 season. 3 managers in, all bad appointments, with Pearson and with, trying to think who it was now, 1920. Who even was it? I've completely forgotten. That's terrible, isn't it? Oh, Javi Gracia at the start of the season. And then we brought in Kike for that absolute mare of a second time in charge. So look, we really have to learn. The board have to change, and with Rob Edwards now for our Championship season, I'm feeling confident. I'm hoping for a top 2, if not top 6. But this club deserves to be in the Premier League, and that team does not deserve to be in the Premier League, because that group of players did not have the right attitude. Other than Hassan Kamara, there were a lot of players there that were just coasting, and that is simply not good enough. So, in terms of how it affected the predictions, I did say Watford a bit higher up, so that was slightly off there. I think we said 17th for Watford, am I right? I am. Yeah, I remember just thinking before the season started, anything but safety, and it's a bad season. Like, we don't care how we stay up, but as long as we get, the other side of that dotted line. But unfortunately, we really were deservedly inside that dotted line. So, yeah, that's a difference of -2, as I did with Norwich. So, 2 predictions there that are pretty close, pretty unlucky, and that's a decent start to the table predictions. But what are we saying for 18th spot? Of course, it was Burnley. Now, Burnley finished in 18th. Who did we predict to be in there? Well, it was in fact... Well, you'd be surprised by this, but believe it or not, people, in 18th, I think I had Crystal Palace. I need to check that, but going back to Burnley, obviously they had a pretty poor season. I did think they would go down, but I didn't think they'd finish 18th, so +1 on what I predicted. But yeah, Burnley were just pretty awful pretty much most of the season. Sean Dyche, I think he's run out of ideas with that squad. Unfortunately, just not given the money, not given the backing, and then they sacked Dyche, and that just kind of threw it into the bin, really. Mike Jackson came in. They got a couple of wins, yeah, against Watford, which wasn't exactly a difficult task with how bad we were. But also, a couple of wins against like Southampton and Wolves. But then they really just shot themselves in the foot with some bad performances when they didn't need it. And especially on the final day, it was in their hands to stay up and to use their hands in the wrong way. I'm talking to you, Nathan Collins, that silly decision to give away the penalty on the handball. And yeah, they were really poor on the final day and they missed chances. Routeway Course was not a successful transfer. So look, at the end of the day, Burnley will be very disappointed. But new era now under Vincent Kompany in the Championship. They are one of the favourites for the title. Burnley, they have got a lot of Premier League experience recently. So it'll be interesting to see how they react to this. But they have got some financial issues. So let's see what happens there. But still, very decent prediction from me. And that is the first one of the video where I've actually got some points for my predictions, because the scoring system is for each correct position you get 7 points, for each position you get just 1 place out it's 2 points, and then when we go on later to talk about the players predictions, that involves golden boot, golden glove and most assists, i.e. the playmaker award. That gives you 5 points for each correct player. So yeah, that's 2 points for us there for that correct Burnley prediction. So solid stuff. We will take that. We've underestimated Burnley a little bit there, but they were pretty poor. Okay, moving on to 17th, it was Leeds United. Now Leeds were a team we actually had finishing much higher up based on how good they were last season. And I'm not sure if it was 9th that they finished last season, but that's at least what I predicted this season. I thought their style under Marcelo Bielsa was attractive. They were going for it. They were actually scoring goals. And Bamford was in a fantastic season, as was Stuart Dallas, but that kind of went down the pan this season. Dallas got injured. Not Dallas. Bamford got injured. Dallas moved into a bit more of a defensive position and a kind of CDM position. And Rafinha was good, but ultimately you can't have a one-man team. And Leeds so leaky at the back. We saw that in the first game against Manchester United. 5 conceded after conceding 6 the previous season at Old Trafford. It was just a very bad season for Leeds. And Marcelo Bielsa couldn't get them going. And it's a sad way to see him leave, but it was inevitable. Jesse Marsch came in, and obviously Americans have not got the best reputation in terms of the Premier League when you look at managers like Bob Bradley. But to be fair, Jesse Marsch, he got the most out of them, and just about Leeds staying up, winning on the final day against Brentford. And so at least I got that right. I knew Leeds would stay up, but for me to put them 9th was unfortunate. I should have probably seen they would get second season syndrome, but it is what it is. So that's my worst prediction so far, with a difference there of -8. So not the most ideal one, that one. 16th spot, I put, I can't remember who I put, but the point was, it was 16th Everton. That's how it finished in reality. So real shock, this one. Obviously didn't think Everton were going to get near relegation because they've just been an established Premier League club. They've not really pushed enough, and they have had a pretty rocky kind of last few seasons, especially with Ancelotti leaving and their financial problems. But I didn't think they'd be in a relegation scrap. Their defence was just awful pretty much most of the season. Pickford, though, to be fair, made a few good saves towards the end of it. But really, their defence was so open and weak. And, you look at that Everton-Watford game, the way Watford sliced them open, all credit to Watford and the way they attacked that day. And if only they'd have shown some attacking quality like that more often across the season. But ultimately, though, Everton was still pretty poor. They were completely getting dummied and, you know, swiped and everything. Like, they were just so poor at the back. And Michael Keane obviously didn't have a great season, and they had a lot of injuries, Everton, to the likes of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who, you know, started the season pretty well, 3 goals in 3, but, you know, at the end of the day, Everton had a pretty disjointed season, some weird signings like Andros Townsend. I mean, you would say that's weird. He did score a few goals at the start, but ultimately it wasn't amazing, and Rondon came in from China. Like, that was just a mad one. So yeah, they didn't use their money wisely, but Richarlison got them out of a hole, really. So yeah, Everton, they stay up just about with that win over Palace with the Calvert-Lewin header, but I didn't predict that. I thought they would finish, as they usually do, around 10th. So -6 wrong there. Again, not an ideal prediction, but not our worst one so far. We move on then to 15th spot, and that was Southampton. That's how it finished in the table. Now, Southampton often flirt with relegation. They're not always a terrible side, but they do have a lot of kind of inconsistencies, and they actually went on a bit of a bad run towards the end of the season where they were just losing games. I mean, they beat Arsenal at home, and then they went on a really poor run. And that included that, obviously, defeat to Liverpool at home, and then obviously losing heavily to Leicester on the final day. They were really quite sloppy at the back, and they had a few injuries as well themselves, but, you know, they didn't really have a focal man enough. Trey Adams popped in with a few, Adam Armstrong, like 1 or 2. Ultimately, though, it was all down to Ward-Prowse, and what a season in terms of free kick goals he had. But in terms of a collective, Southampton should be worried about next season. They seem to just keep slipping. But Hasenhüttl still keeps faith, the Southampton board, so fair play to them, but it might be a bit of an interesting one. So I actually did say Southampton would finish a bit higher than this, 14th. But, as I said with the prediction for the Burnley one, that is only 1 out. So, -1 difference there. That's another 2 points for us. We're on to 4 so far. Decent stuff. I mean, obviously, let's ignore Leeds and the previous one, whoever it was, Everton. Let's ignore them for now. But so far, so good. 14th spot was Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa, I actually thought would have had a blinding season. I just saw their signings, like Leon Bailey, well, I wouldn't have known it by then, but Philippe Coutinho came in. Like, that's mad. They brought in as well, you know, a really good signing in the form of Callum Chambers. They also brought in, I'm trying to think who else there is now. Danny Ings, of course, Danny Ings. So, you know, they made some good transfers, and they had a pretty good season, certainly in the second half of it. The first half was pretty awful under Dean Smith, hence why he got sacked. Gerrard came in, actually had quite a nice manager bounce. Then they went for a little rocky spell with Gerrard, and then they kind of recovered it a little bit near the end. And then, obviously, that final game against City, they nearly, Liverpool got helped out nearly by Villa with Gerrard and Coutinho helping, you know, their former club. But it wasn't to be. City did a bit of an Aguero moment and came back 1-3-2, and last minute Ilkay Gundogan goal. But look, Villa have got to be so proud about the season because they have had great moments. Matty Cash was fantastic, but they finished 14th. I went for 7th because I just saw those signings and thought they were really going to push for that European spot, but it just didn't happen. So that's a difference of -7. That's a bit of an ugly one, I'm not going to lie. It's starting to get a bit more ugly in these last few. So yeah, we need to get a bit more stability back on track. But here we go. 13th was Brentford. Now, I said about Brentford how I put them bottom. Look, I have to say, fair play, Brentford. You were fantastic. You know, the football you were playing, the ways you scored goals, it was just brilliant. And Ivan Toney, what a season. I mean, there's enough pressure after you've had a season in the Championship, blitzing all previous records, scoring, what was it, like 33 goals? Unbelievable. I mean, I say that now. Obviously, Mitrovic this season scored like 43. So, you know, not to say Toney had a bad Championship season, but there was a lot of pressure on his arms on his shoulders, I should say. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Toney had a lot of pressure on his shoulders after that season, but he really rose to it. Obviously, had a tricky start, but got that goal away to Villa, and then was kind of up and down between then. And Brian Mbeumo was unfortunate, scored not that many goals, hit the post a lot of times. But David Raya was good, and when he got injured, that was a blow to Brentford. But they went on a bit of a hairy run. They got through that, and then they had a fairly comfortable end to the season, beating Chelsea. You know, getting some very good results along the way. So Brentford, great season. I didn't see it coming though. I thought they were 20th. So that is another stinky prediction. I mean, we're getting pretty poor right now. We've got 3 out of the last 5, we've at least got -6 difference or +6 difference. So this is not good. I'm not gonna lie, this is not good. We want to get as little kind of difference as possible. Those -1s, they're just a thing of recent memory. They're a thing of the past right now because we're getting some bad predictions. But let's move on to 12th spot, and it was Crystal Palace. Now Palace surprised me this season. I thought they would really struggle with Vieira coming in. What he did at his previous clubs. I think was he at Nice, and I think some other club, like was it New York City or something, some American team, I can't remember. But my point I'm saying is he didn't exactly have the best pedigree, and going into it, it's like a bit of a risk that Palace had taken. And also they had so many aging players coming out of contract, so you thought that was going to have to be a bit of a rejig at Palace. But they got it right. They bring in youth, they bring in exciting prospects like Michael Olise, and a great signing in Edouard, well, we thought at least, after he came in from Celtic. Was a great goal scorer for Celtic. And they also brought in Conor Gallagher on loan from Chelsea, and that was an inspired loan move. But, you look at next season, you think Gallagher might even stay at Chelsea because it just doesn't seem that Palace, well, they might want to get him back, but I just don't know if it's going to get over the line. Chelsea probably will put their foot down. But ultimately, it was a great season for Palace. They had a few sticky periods, as all clubs do, but ultimately pretty steady and, quite good towards the end of the season, beating Arsenal 3-0, obviously beating Man United on the final day. So a strong season for Vieira, for sure. And I thought it would be a bit more near the relegation zone, but I ended up predicting 15th. So that's a +3 goal difference. Fair play, Palace. I underestimated you, as I do pretty much most seasons, because, I don't know, there's this difficult rivalry with Palace and Watford. So I kind of, wishful thinking, hope you get dragged in. But no, to be fair to you, you did well this season. You could have done a lot better. Obviously, you conceded a lot of last-minute goals, and that's a pretty much a shame. But, I think you can push towards top half next season once, signings have been made. 11th, Newcastle. Now, this was a shocker, I'm not going to lie. Around about December, January, they were looking destined for relegation. I mean, when we lost, well, not lost, but when we didn't beat Newcastle back in September, I was thinking that's embarrassing because Newcastle were in a state under Steve Bruce and they had chances, they wasted them, they were so poor, and we got absolutely outplayed by Newcastle. And it was a really, really bad situation with them under Steve Bruce, under Mike Ashley, but then Ashley left, they got in the owners, the Saudi ownership, and the takeover happened, and it was like, oh my gosh, from 1 minute Newcastle flirting with a very likely relegation to the next, they could even push for top half, top 7. Like, it was mad. It was a great transformation for them, for the fans, because they've gone through a lot of suffering in recent seasons. But fair play Newcastle under the new management of Eddie Howe. Okay, you would say the money helped. Of course it did. I should say. But, let's see. It's hard to say where would they have finished if they didn't have the takeover. They might have still gone down. But look, at the end of the day, Eddie Howe is a good manager. There's no debating that. And he did make a good job. It's just the money, obviously, was a massive, massive factor. They brought in Bruno Guimaraes, who did amazingly. They also brought in Trippier, who got injured, but, scored a nice couple of free kicks. And, generally, they made some decent transfers, but they really want to push on next season and go a bit further, really. So, yeah, Newcastle, great season. I couldn't have predicted that takeover, man. Like, before the season started, sure, they're one of the relegation candidates. So, I kind of take it on the chin. 16th, it's not too bad. 5 off. It changed a lot after the takeover. So, 10th place, Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, the reason I went for Wolves in this spot was because, they set themselves pretty high standards that first season they were in the Premier League in 18-19. And I just thought, yeah, Wolves are going to go again. They're going to have a strong season. Obviously, Jimenez back from his injury. I kind of thought, how long would it take for him to recover? But ultimately, I thought they would, have enough. They have good players, good defence. They ended last season fairly well in defence. And, I just thought they would do quite well. Bruno Lage came in. And to be honest, Wolves started the season pretty dodgily. Like, when I say dodgily, that's not a word. But in a dodgy fashion. They weren't scoring enough goals and they were just wasting chances. And then they had that first win against Watford. What a surprise. And then they started to do some more. Then they lost against Brentford and you kind of think, what? That they're straight back to Jekyll and Hyde sort of thing. So they had a weird season, I'm not going to lie. But they had nice moments in it. Hwang Hee-chan got a couple of goals against Newcastle and Leeds. but ultimately didn't get enough. And they did kind of have strong defence throughout most of the season. Jose Sá, in his first season, the Portuguese goalkeeper, fantastic campaign for sure. But then the end of the season, Wolves kind of dropped off in a big way. And, you think about that Leeds game, the way they surrendered a 2-0 lead, got a man sent off, like it was just a bit hectic from Wolves. But then towards the end of the season, they had some decent performances. Obviously that draw at Chelsea, and then on the final day, obviously, you didn't see much of a difference for their previous seasons, but ultimately it was a lower finish, so they'll be a bit disappointed, but they'll take it at the same time. I predicted 12th. They ended up finishing instead, was it 14th? Really? I thought they finished 13th. Maybe I'm thinking of a previous season. But yeah, they actually ended up finishing 9th, it says here. So, fair enough. I'm surprised by that, I'm not going to lie. No, sorry, not 9th, 10th. It says here 10th. Why am I not reading it? Sorry, I predicted 12th. I thought I'd predicted 10th. Apologies. No, they finished 10th in reality, but I actually said they'd be a bit mid-table. So that's actually quite a nice prediction. I'm pretty happy with that. Difference of 2, we'll take that. It weathers the storm from the previous bad predictions. So that's quite a nice one, to be fair, because a lot of people might have had Wolves a bit lower down because of the fact they sacked Nuno and it was a bit of unsurety. But I thought Wolves would be strong enough, and neither did I think they were going to get Europa League, but they were solid. Now moving on to 9th spot, and it was Brighton that finished in 9th. Their first ever top half finish, their highest Premier League finish. What a season, Brighton. Graham Potter, he's going to get snapped up soon because he's a quality coach. He didn't do that much at Swansea. He was all right, but he kind of helped them where they needed it. But then at Brighton, that first season was tough. I'm not going to lie, it was tough, but they got safety. And then this season, this has been a brilliant season, fantastic stuff. So Brighton, they didn't still score that many goals, but they did later on in the season. And, that win against Man United showed they've got a brilliant style of football, and it's paid off. Brighton, though, I didn't think they would finish this high. I thought 13th. So, fair play. I underestimated you, Brighton, but still, I still feel you're a solid Premier League unit. You don't look like you're going to go down most seasons. I mean, you have flirted a few times, but I think they're solid enough at the back, and they're scoring a few more goals now, which is good. So, +4 difference to what I predicted. So, fair play to you, Brighton. Very good finish. 8th spot, Leicester. Now, Leicester were, in my opinion, the shock letdowns of the season. When I say letdown, I mean Leicester, they were in very close proximity to finishing top 4 a couple seasons ago, and the same thing, and they keep bottling top 4 and finishing 5th or 6th, and I thought they'd still be in around that top 6. I thought they'd actually finish in a nice healthy spot of 5th, but boy was I wrong. Their defence, man, was really poor this season, and they did take a while to get going and actually scoring goals. I mean, Vardy got injured, that didn't help. Maddison was pretty slow at the start of the season. Then he picked up and really ended the season on flames. But, yeah, Leicester, injuries, man. They got injuries so much. Fofana, every time it feels like he gets injured. And, they got a lot of defensive injuries. But they did enough to finish 8th, which is decent, to be fair. Could have been a lot worse. But ultimately, they need to be aiming a bit higher next season. I think Brendan Rodgers is a quality manager. But maybe they just lost their touch a little bit this season. But, at least they don't have Europe next season because they didn't finish for Europa Conference. So that's quite a nice thing. Hopefully they'll push on for the top 6 next season. Now, that was, of course, a difference of -3. So, again, not too bad. It's starting to get a bit more respectable than previously. But it could be better at the same time. Still yet to get a correct score, a correct position. We will wait. Let's see if we get one. 7th, West Ham. Now, the reason I put West Ham here was because last season... Sorry, I didn't put them there. That's where they finished. Of course they did. Sorry, I keep getting confused about the order. No, West Ham finished 7th. Great season. Mainly down to Jared Bowen. What a man. He was fantastic this season. And Antonio started it so well, dropped off for most of the season, and then obviously scored on the final day. And Benrahma had a breakout season. That was really impressive. He was brilliant in pre-season, carried it into the first few games of the season, and really got going. And, you look at Declan Rice. He had a great season. You look at, at the back, Craig Dawson had a great season. So, yeah, West Ham, very strong. Very unlucky to not win the Europa League. They got there in the semi-final, got there close, but it is what it is. It wasn't meant to be. But they have qualified, again, for Europe, this time Europa Conference. So, yeah, West Ham, very strong season. I thought they would be a bit more mid-table, and I thought because of the fact they had Europa League football, that would affect their league table. But fair enough. Still top half and still getting European football. I said 11th, so +4 difference. Sorry, West Ham, I underestimated you there a little bit. Moving on, 6th. Now, we get into the Europa League spot, and Manchester United did secure a Europa League spot, believe it or not. So, yeah, that was a poor season for Manchester United. Really, really poor. They started off, on fire. Against Leeds, they were brilliant. Then they also beat that second game. They beat the third game against Wolves. They drew with Southampton. You kind of thought, okay, well, they're scoring goals. Not too bad. Ronaldo comes in. What an amazing thing that was. I mean, I honestly thought, that was an amazing signing. So, I thought United had made brilliant signings before that, though. With Varane and Sancho. I thought United were going to push for top 4 this season, if not the title. So, I was they could finish 3rd or 4th. Genuinely believed that. But no, United fell away under Solskjaer. Watford put the nail in the coffin with a huge, fantastic victory over them. And then they started losing games there was no tomorrow. That Liverpool game, awful. Absolutely awful at Old Trafford. And then they did it again at Anfield as well. So United, awful. Really, really poor. Fernandes had a stinker of a season. Ronaldo, in that struggling Manchester United team, to score 18 goals, absolutely superb. What a welcome back for CR7. And, at the end of the day, what you can say about Ronaldo, how he's changed Manchester United playing as a team. If it wasn't without him, they would be not even top half, in my opinion. He has absolutely saved their bacon. But one thing is for sure, next season, rebuild has to begin. Because, they've been linked with some interesting names like Eriksen and, Timber and Anthony. But they've now been rumoured with Daniel Bachmann. Yeah, that's right. Daniel Bachmann, who didn't keep a clean sheet all of last season. Our second choice goalie. What's the point? I know Henderson's going off to Nottingham Forest, but you don't need to get in Bachmann. Just prioritise some better transfers, man. So United are a mess, but they've got Ten Hag to come in, who people are excited about from a Manchester United persuasion, but let's just see. Time will tell if United can actually, sort out their ideas, because that season was shambolic. But from a Manchester United side, obviously, you expect more. However, from any footballing side, from a Watford point of view, I still see it as a decent season because, you finished top 6, but United obviously have a lot bigger ambitions. So I actually ended up putting United 3rd, mainly because of their signings. I thought their business was quite good. I also thought Jesse Lingard might be alright this season. I thought he might get a few chances to shine, but no, he barely got played, and now he wants to move. So, look, United need to sort out their player the way they handle players. You look at Pogba, what he was doing this season, I don't know. Really, really sloppy. So yeah, he's off to Juventus, and United are off to play in the Europa League. But really, I'm not too disheartened about that prediction. -3 difference. We move on to 5th spot. Now, looking into 5th spot, we went with Arsenal. Now, in terms of Arsenal, I tell you what, they started the season really poorly. Really, really poorly. And they were bottom of the league. But, I tell you what, patience with Arteta did pay off. Certainly for most of the season. They had progress. They finished 8th last season, man. But this season, much better. Focus on youth. That is what's going to get you results. And Emil Smith-Rowe, Bukayo Saka, I tell you, they were brilliant. Brilliant. Martinelli as well had a breakout season. And Arsenal, really, how they didn't get top 4 is beyond me. It was in their hands. And, like Tottenham usually do most seasons, they went and truly bottled it. I mean, that game against Palace was just diabolical. And then the nail in the coffin was that Newcastle away trip where they put in an absolute nothing performance. So, yeah, Arsenal, disappointing. But it is progress. They have got a Europa League spot. And at the end of the day, they want to just go again next season with, some players coming in, coming out. And Nketiah signed a new contract. Aubameyang, he's been a bit of an idiot. He's gone and left, which is good riddance. Has Lacazette left? Yes, he has. So, Arsenal, they've got a bit of a reshuffle to do. But I think ultimately, there were some promising signs last season. How I predicted them, though, I did in fact say 6th spot. So close, but no cigar. However, that is another 2 points. Decent. That's what we love to see. Okay, +1 out, we will take it. We move on, and we'll tally up all those points and tell you at the end. 4th spot was Tottenham. Now, fair play to Conte, because Spurs, they didn't look good, to say the very least, after the first 7-8 games under Nuno. They started the season brilliantly with 3 1-0 wins, but that wasn't that amazing. Like, it was, 1-0. Come on. You're not blowing anyone out the water. But they were awful against Palace away. And then Nuno got sacked. And then they were like, well, what are we going to do? And I'm not going to lie, I still thought it was in Spurs' hands to get top 4 before Conte came in. And Conte was bragging like, I came in November and, this team was never going to finish top 4. And now he finished in top 4. So it's almost like he's settled for less this season. But, fair enough. That's all Spurs fans probably wanted because they knew there was no chance of them realistically pushing for the title. There's too much of a gap. But Spurs haven't got top 4 a lot recently. So to get top 4, especially over Arsenal, was an achievement for them. And Kulusevski, what a signing. Unbelievable. But Son Heung-min, what a season. And he is massively underrated compared to your De Bruyne's and your Salah's. Like, he was brilliant. And how he didn't get on the team of the season, I don't know. But I will give my Premier League team of the season at the end of the video. So Tottenham, how did I think they would finish? I went for 8th. Now, hear me out, right? I said 8th because I thought Leicester would be in the top half. I also thought Arsenal would finish above them. And I saw that under Spurs, under, the management of, they had Ryan Mason, man. Like, come on. Last season, they did look quite up and down. They had Mourinho, they had Mason. I just didn't know what to think of them. And I get that Son had a good season, as he usually does. So did Kane. But I thought Kane might go to Man City. So I thought if that was a loss for Spurs, then that would really hurt them. I also thought they just weren't keeping enough clean sheets. To be fair, they weren't that brilliant defensively this season either, but they did enough. They were solid enough. And it's got to be said, a good season for Matt Doherty. He started the season pretty slowly, had that little period though, mid-season, where he was doing pretty well, and then obviously unlucky to get injured for the rest of the season. But he'll be strong, as will their new signing, Ivan Perisic, the Croatian wing-back. I assume he'll play there, but, that's a very good kind of wing-back system that Conte likes. He did that at Inter Milan. So, he gets in a former Inter Milan player at Spurs, and they've also gone and signed a bit of Yves Bissouma, which is a very interesting one, to be fair. They probably needed that, with, not much presence in that midfield, with Ndombele obviously not having a great season, and, Harry Winks completely missing. Like, that's what they kind of need to drive that midfield, alongside, their new signing, Bentancur. So, yeah, very decent season for Spurs. Fair enough. I did it over underestimate you, if that makes sense. I really didn't think you would be that good this season, but maybe that's just previous seasons in terms of like folding towards the end of the season. But you were strong in the final kind of run in, and you got your 4th place, so fair play. Moving on, 3rd spot now, Chelsea. Now, we still yet to get a correct position, but this is where Chelsea finished, in 3rd. Did I say that? Well, I thought Tuchel would have a good season. I thought Chelsea would actually push for the title, so I went with 2nd. So this is unfortunate. Chelsea at the start of the season, though, they got close. Like, they looked title contenders. Like, when Lukaku came in that Villa game and that Arsenal game, it's like, yes, this is the missing piece for Chelsea, a striker that scored goals. And we all know how badly Lukaku's season went. For the 100 million, that was one of the worst transfers in Premier League history, based on lack of value. And ultimately, Chelsea were poor. Let's not beat around the bush. They were poor in crucial moments this season. However, across the season, still a great season. Like, they got fairly far in the Carabao Cup. Obviously, got to the final. The same thing for the FA Cup, and they were just a little bit off Man City and Liverpool, but still a strong season. Tuchel, still a good manager. They just need the signings to click a bit more. With Ziyech, obviously, he had a good goal against Spurs, but they just need to see more of him. And defensively, they were pretty good. And Reece James, whenever he got injured, that was really hurt their defence. So Rudiger's going to leave. They need a big of a clear out, and obviously with the takeover, it's going to be a big kind of change around. So we'll see what happens there, but only one difference. So again, people, we get some points for the predictions. Lovely stuff. Now, moving into 2nd, it was of course Liverpool that did not clinch the title, and is that what I predicted? Not quite. Now this is where it gets kind of awkward, because I thought the top 4 race was going to be so big next season. So I thought, yeah, it's going to be so tight between Chelsea, Liverpool, City, United. For that reason, I thought Liverpool, they actually ended last season pretty sloppily, and City won the league at a canter. So I thought this is going to be the season Liverpool drop off a little bit, but still going to get top 4. Well, no, Liverpool were fantastic. They were brilliant, and they pushed City to the very end, and they finished 2nd. So fair enough, Liverpool fans, I underestimated you. Very good season. Mo Salah, unbelievable campaign. 23 goals, what a player. So, again, we get a very nice, prediction there, but not quite enough for the points system. It was 2 out and not 1. So then, of course, that leaves only one team, Manchester City, who we did get bang on the money. Get in. Finally, we waited to the last possible slot to get a correct position, I should say. Look, at the end of the day, this was not my season. Man City, though, at least we got that one right. The title, we had faith in them. They are the best team. And when they added Jack Grealish to their squad, I thought this is going to be a great team. And lo and behold, they did it. So, fair play. Not the best of table predictions for me, though. Honestly, when I look back at my previous records, it is my worst. It is my worst. So, let's have a little look at that for it, shall we, people? If we can just zoom out of this a little bit so we can see what we want. Right, so this is where we're going to show you, people. That was obviously the scoring. If we look back at history, this is my worst season. And I don't know how I've managed this, because it was even worse than the COVID season. And the COVID season, I matched last season in a normal season. Like, madness. I mean, you look at 20 to 21, there were some weird results, like 7-2 Villa against Liverpool and all that stuff. But at the same time, like, awful, awful campaign from me this season. Only 1 correct score and 4 1 off. So that is really, really sloppy. 15 points. I mean, I don't like to see it. I just don't like to see it. But let's move on to the players. Looking at this then, ultimately, it was a decent stuff from previous seasons. Like, I usually get the goalkeeper right. I got it right. So, for Golden Glove, it was, of course, Edison this season. That's what we predicted. 5 points. Bob's your uncle. But for the top scorer and the assister, honestly, this season, I had a bit of a mare. I don't know what I was thinking at the start of the season. I was just off on one. Like, to be fair, I didn't know Ronaldo was going to go to United, so I went with Cavani as top scorer. But in reflection, like, I saw he signed a new contract. I thought, yep, he's going to be there for another season. When he was there, he was brilliant last season. So that was an unfortunate one. United and Cavani did get not that much minutes, and United were pretty awful. So that's just a shame. But we also said for the top assister, Mason Mount. And to be fair, Mason Mount was not far off. He was not far off, but instead, the top assister was the king, Mo Salah. So Salah didn't just get the top scorer along with Son, but also top assister. What a season for him. Unbelievable. So, only 5 points. So that's a pretty stinking one, to be honest. Premier League predictions for 2021-22. There it is. It's a pretty stinky season. But let's quickly move on to Championship and end the video there. Looking at the Championship in previous seasons. Now, I actually finished on 27 points for the table predictions this season. Last season, I should say. So, 27 points. So, we got 3 correct positions and 3 1 place off in last season's prediction. And then also last season, for the predictions points, we said that Buendia would be the top assister last season. That was bang on. And we also said Freddie Woodman. That was bang on. So, we got 10 points in the predictions for players last season. Looking at this season, here is the table that I predicted. Now, just quickly looking at the Championship table in reality, I can tell you that, honestly, I didn't have the best of Championship seasons. Like, apart from Fulham, it was a bit of a stinker. So, we did, in fact, predict Fulham top. Boom, we'll take that. West Brom, oh dear. I don't know why we thought West Brom was suddenly amazing. But they actually ended up finishing 10th. Sheffield United, they finished 3rd in my prediction, but 5th in reality, so not great. Bournemouth finished 4th in my prediction. They actually finished 2nd, so just the Fulham one so far. QPR, okay, a bit of a stinker. I overestimated them. Swansea, I also overestimated them. They were pretty poor in 15th. Then we said Cardiff City in 7th. I mean, I don't know why I keep thinking Cardiff are that good, because they finished in 18th. Then in 8th place, we said Middlesbrough. Well, they finished 7th, so that's a dub. I'll take that. That's a correct one position out. So we're on to a nice little tally of 9 points now. Looking at the next spot, we said Stoke City in 9th. Stoke really weren't that near getting promotion. They were in 14th, not ideal. Then Reading, 10th. Well, Reading, you know what happened with them. They were a stinking club last season and only just stayed up. So, yeah, not great so far. Barnsley 11th. Oh dear, they got bottom. Right, what's that about? Previous season, Barnsley just stay up and then they finish 5th. And I predicted like 22nd or 21st. This season, I predict they finish fairly low. Like, fairly, when I say fairly low, I mean like, mid-table. Something like that. But where did Barnsley finish? In not 11th, 24th. So they do the reverse. Brilliant. Okay. The rest of them, I'm just going to show you because you can see it right there. and then that's the top scorer, Mitrovic. I mean, yeah, top assist to Diangana. I mean, it was not great. It was not great. That's how we're going to end. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.